right, tonight our main speaker is Jenna. Help me welcome Jenna.
Hi, I'm Jenna. I'm an alcoholic. Oh. All right, just breathe for a sec. It's really good to be here with all of you in person and have so many people here that I love and admire, and those of you that I don't know that I'm happy to see here too, because it's better than seeing you out there. My sobriety date is March 14th, 2018. This is just surreal to even be in a position where I feel like there's even a chance of being able to do anything for anybody, because so long I was just a taker and had nothing to offer anybody. And I didn't even really let myself daydream about being in recovery and having anything to offer, because it just seemed totally out of my reach. When I got here, I was like absolutely positively hopeless, and I really never thought I would ever get here, because I tried really long and hard to get here. I used all of my willpower, and I never made it. So I just kind of, I guess, resigned to that fact that I was hopeless and I didn't have whatever it was that you guys had that get to stay here. I never imagined that I would be an alcoholic. My upbringing was really normal. I grew up in Wisconsin, in a suburb of Milwaukee, and I played sports all my life. I played soccer from a really young age, and was really dedicated to that and really loved it. My dad would always make a big fuss if I got straight A's, so I always worked really hard in school, I guess mostly just for that approval and that pride from him, because our relationship was always kind of strained, but I knew that always kind of got his attention, so I was pretty focused in school and in sports all of my upbringing. I was one of 4 kids in a pretty modest middle-class family, and we grew up in kind of basically everybody there was more well-off than our family, and so that kind of bred a little bit of feeling less than in our family, but it never really seemed to be a big deal. I just remember money was always kind of a stressor, and I think I still to this day have kind of a messed up relationship with money, just because it was always such a point of stress. But we went to a Catholic grade school, and I never really remember any of that really resonating with me. It always felt kind of foreign, and I just never connected to anything there. But I think my mom wasn't religious, but I think my mom just wanted us to go there to kind of stay out of trouble, and for that it served its purpose. We had a DARE program and all that stuff, and I remember my mom would sometimes smoke cigarettes when she was stressed about money, and I remember thinking she's going to drop dead from smoking a cigarette, because I thought DARE program, drugs or alcohol would and smoking would kill you instantly. But so I always had a fear of those, but I guess my fear of alcohol just never really took off, because my dad worked harder than anybody I'd ever met, still probably to this day, and he drank every night, but he never missed a day of work. I don't think I ever saw him drunk. It never interfered in his life in any sort of way. So I didn't really see alcohol as any kind of threat, and being so dedicated to the things I just didn't think that I would ever have any sort of problem with that I had to worry about. So I did that. I played sports and worked hard in school and all that stuff through high school. My group of friends in high school did drink on weekends, but for whatever reason we always got a designated driver, and I had gotten a job as soon as I possibly could when I was young, so that I could afford my own car. So when I was 16, I bought a car from one of my guy friends, and so I thought I was cool in my little Acura Integra, and I could go see my friends at this school and that school, so I often volunteered to be the designated driver, because I don't know, seeing my friends and that sort of thing was a bigger priority to me than drinking. And also I did have some fear about drinking interfering with, I never wanted to get in trouble with soccer or have my grades compromised in any way. So that just wasn't high on my priority list. I didn't really have any trouble that I recall in high school with drinking. But when I was 18, my sister went away to college. My parents decided to get a divorce, which I don't remember really having any grave effect on me. We were all pretty much like, duh, like, I don't know, we weren't bothered. We kind of saw that coming. There were just some changes, I guess, and maybe that's what started things. But my first experience with any kind of like addictive behavior was through an eating disorder. I think I started down that road just as like a half-hearted attempt, like a cry for attention from a cheating boyfriend in high school, and I had no idea that I had any kind of like addictive personality or that anything would come of that, but I quickly got swallowed whole by that, and by the time I left for college, I was already pretty sick, but like I would later apply to alcoholism, I just thought, like, once I have different circumstances, I'll straighten out and everything will be fine. So I went to college, and I thought everything would get better and I would just kind of normalize, and that did not happen at all. I came home for a Thanksgiving break, I think, and my mom took one look at me and like burst into tears and just basically tossed me and all my shit into the car and was like, "We're going to get you help." So that was my first experience in rehab when I was 18, and I had to withdraw from school. And I quickly learned that I could just say whatever they wanted me to say and do whatever they wanted me to do, and then I could get out and do things my way. And I did that, and it circled me back to treatment pretty quickly. And by the second trip, I kind of realized that this was going nowhere, and this school that I had worked so hard to get into, I was having to withdraw from semesters. I had been on the dean's list like my first semester there, but, withdrawing over and over and life just being such a chaotic mess, that was slowly starting to slip away. So I realized I was going to have to give that all up, but I had such anxiety, and I didn't know what to do or how to handle that. So I was at this party school, this #1 party school in the nation at the time, and the conditions were just right. Like I was lost, and I just started going out more and more, and I think I had maybe like a semester at most where I was on like the end of the spectrum of like a heavy partier, but it was already really abnormal because I was drinking, for a purpose. I wasn't just drinking to have a good time like my friends were. I was drinking to fix something or medicate something, and I was having blackouts all the time. My friends constantly had to babysit me. I was falling down all the time. I had the nickname Bambi in high school, and in college. And I fell down the stairs, a downstairs bar in Madison, and broke my collarbone. Like, I was just a mess, and somebody always had to take care of me. So there was a lot of SOS calls made to my mom in Milwaukee saying that, worried about Jenna, and she's drinking a lot. And so I always felt like such a victim of like, it's a conspiracy. They're all like talking about me behind my back and plotting these interventions, and it felt so unfair. And it really never occurred to me, like, I look back on my college years and I'm like, part of me is still sad that was such an opportunity to grow and like thrive, and those are like the saddest years of my life. But I never once thought about like those roommates and those friends who had to like, call my mom constantly and worry about me and take care of me, and just the anguish that all caused them. It just never dawned on me. So my mom and my friends, there was interventions, there was rehab trips. And I remember going into rehab, and I was, 20 years old, and I'm in rehab with people twice my age at least, and I just thought, like, this is all just a big misunderstanding. Like, I just, I went through some life things, and I drank through my problems, but, like, I'm not of the caliber of these people that I'm in treatment with who have, railroaded their lives and lost meaningful things. Like, I just party too much, and I knew that I had no intention of not drinking ever again. I quickly, like, assessed the situation and was like, okay, I'm just not going to drink publicly anymore. It's just going to be, low key, and everyone can just mind their business, and it'll all be fine. And what an alcoholic looks like drinking with no supervision is a mixture of, like, pathetic and scary, and it was just bad. I was, like, bringing water bottles full of vodka to the library. I was just a mess. And, I always thought, like, no one would know, and it'll just be, like, my little secret. But, like, everybody knew, But I was still trying to sell the story to, like, anyone who would listen. Like, I remember going to the liquor store and buying, like, handles of vodka, like, every other day. And, like, telling the clerk that, like, oh, I'm having a party, it's Tuesday night, 5 p.m. It's going to be better than yesterday's party, if you can believe that. And I'm sure I walked out of there and he was just like, this sad girl, you know what I mean? Like, she comes in here shaking and like, okay, whatever she's got to tell me to get by. But I thought I was keeping up appearances reasonably well. But I absolutely wasn't. I started having, I guess I was prone to seizures. Maybe I had some in my youth, just really rarely. But I started having alcohol withdrawal seizures fairly frequently, like as of like 2021. And they were terrifying, but I don't know. And I would have them like even if I was still drinking, but my tolerance got so high so quick that if I just wasn't drinking as fast as like my body demanded, I would still have withdrawal seizures because it was like around the clock. There was like alcohol hidden in my room. It was just constant. And I knew it was bad, but I just saw it as like bad then. And that I would figure a way out of it, or I would grow out of it, or whatever. I didn't have any sense that like it only gets worse from here, and this is already bad, So there was more rehab trips, a whole report card full of W's every semester, different rehabs, the same rehabs. My mom finally was like, I think you need to like not go back to school, which just broke my heart because that was all I wanted to do. I just wanted to like, somehow I like woke up on this alternate trajectory that made no sense, and I just wanted to like get back to the plan of like go to college and succeed and like life be normal. And I kept trying to get back there, and I just couldn't do it. And my mom wanted me to go to sober living, and back then, I hope it's different now, I'm sure it is, but back then there was like no sober livings for women. There was like one for women and children like up in the sticks somewhere. And I remember telling my mom like basically laughing in her face, like, there's no way that like little 21-year-old party girl me is going to go like shack up with a bunch of deadbeat moms and their bratty kids. Like, it's just, I'm so above that, and there's just no way, And so my mom just being desperate for me to like get help and like, be safe is really all she wanted. She let me con her into going out to California for sober living. So, I thought that was my ticket, that like, I just need to be somewhere else, It's the party school that's the problem. Okay, I get that now, But if I'm elsewhere and, I can get a different job and have different friends and, my environment looks a little different, I'll straighten out. So I went to California and went to treatment there and sober living. And I did the same thing I'd always done, which was like say all the right things and do all the right things and seem like I have the best intentions and I'm on the right track. And I'd get a job in treatment, and I'd relapse in treatment, like working in treatment. And I did that one night driving a client somewhere, and I'd already relapsed and was drinking. I got pulled over and got a DUI. I had to go back into the treatment that I was just driving clients through. They're all looking at me like, this place, like, this is what we hire, like, really. And it was so embarrassing. And that was all I ever thought about, was like, oh, how embarrassing for me, that's all I cared about, was like what people thought of me and how I looked, and not like taking an accurate assessment of like, yeah, it's embarrassing because your life is not good, you're not going anywhere. But I'd always build things back up higher and then burn them to the ground and build them back higher again. I always thought if I like poured myself into work, because I loved working, I'd just work a job or 2 or 5, and I'd save a shitload of money, and then I'd burn through all the money and do it all over again. And I got a car, and quickly after, I don't know if it was DUI number 1 or 2, but I guess it was 2, because then I wound up in jail after a while, and the car just sat in impound for like an eternity. That was bad. But yeah, I got the 1 DUI, and then like maybe not even 6 months later, I just barely started to like, serve the consequences for that and start paying fines. And then I was living with a hostage that I had picked up at a co-ed sober living. and his mommy, and it was so sad. So, and I got another DUI. So, while I'm busy like looking down on him, I'm out getting another DUI and doing nothing with life. And my mom, ever like in my corner and trying to like save me from myself, teamed up with her mom, my grandma, who had a little bit of money, and was like, well, we'll just get a good attorney, and we'll clean this mess up, and you'll straighten out. So they got an attorney, and there was hope that I would be able to avoid jail. But then when I got the third DUI a few months later, the attorney was like scratching his head, like, wow, like I don't know what to tell you, like you are SOL, and like you need to like face the music and like see this for what it is and do something different. So you're gonna do that in jail, I guess. So I went to Santa Ana jail, and I was only in there I think for like 2 weeks, and I don't remember anything about it other than I just cried. Like for 2 weeks solid, I just cried, and I cried out of just nothing but pure like self-pity. Like I just felt so bad for myself that like I just couldn't figure it out how like a straight A athlete and like confident person somehow like gets to this place sitting in a jail just sobbing. Like I couldn't make sense of like where I had made the wrong turn to get here. And it was just miserable. Like my mom would put money on commissary to like write her letters, and all the girls in jail would just steal it because I'm just like this crying sad sack in jail. And it was just so bad. So I got transferred to the farm, if anyone's from California and knows the farm, which was better. And so I saw it as like, see, maybe things are not really that bad. Like, this isn't that bad. I can bounce back from this. I'll pick up the pieces when I get out. And I got county work program from there after like 6 months. And the only way you get county work program was if you had like an address in California, which I did not have. But a friend from treatment and his girlfriend had come to visit me and offered to have me stay with them. So being the manipulative alcoholic that I am, I was like, sure, like that sounds great, and I'll come live with you guys and like do the deal. And then when I got on county work program, there was a girl who described her sister as like a total functional alcoholic and had an extra room, and I was like, oh, well that sounds better. So I'm going to upgrade over there. And so I just did county work program by day and drank with this other alcoholic woman all night long and just did that day in and day out till I miraculously finished county work program. And then I started dating my corrections officer. So I was like, this actually worked out okay, all things considered. Like I was always justifying, like, see, it worked out. Like I got this lovely man, and it was all, it wasn't all for naught, all this whole mess, but like all the relationships before that, it lasted a little while, and then I got the tearful, like, I love you, but like I don't know what to do with you, and I can't fix it, and it's no one wants to watch that, no one wants to watch someone that they love and they think they know turn into a total stranger and be completely helpless to fix it or do anything about it. So I did some more geographic changes. I moved back to Wisconsin for a little bit and tried to stay with my dad because I was like, maybe this is an opportunity for us to like, get to know each other better. And we did for a while, and it was good. And then I drank, and that was like the only condition of me staying with him. And he was always quick to like, he'd give me encouragement about like grades and things like that, but he would never let me live down the stakes. And so it was a lot of like, oh, I knew you would do this. Like, like I counted on you to disappoint me. And, I got that a lot, that look of disappointment that just hurts so much more than words. Like the whole, like, I wanted better for you and I hoped for better and you just weren't able to deliver, And I felt that about myself all the time, like looking in the mirror. It was just like, oh, like what, like such disappointment because I felt like I was trying, in hindsight I wasn't doing anything, but in my mind I was really just trying to get by, and I was doing everything I knew how to do to control and manage, and I thought those things would eventually lead to a solution, but obviously they never did. So I did some more, I basically just got, I say I did geographic changes, but really what happened was like I got hot potatoed from like family to friends to like almost strangers, like anyone that would like take me in and put up with me. And the last house on the block was, of course, my mother, who just never turned her back on me. And she had remarried in Florida, and so I went to stay with her for a while. And so I was living in Florida, and I would always, like, I don't know, do AA, but like the fringe of AA. I was basically going to meetings so that my mom or a boyfriend or somebody, whoever, would be like off my case about it and would think that I was, you know, gonna do the deal. But I knew that I never was. Like, I wouldn't get a home group. I'd come to the meeting as it was starting, and I would bolt out the door. And like, if anybody tried to give me phone numbers, it was like, ooh, you know, I'd just run for it. So, and I never got commitments or anything like that because I knew if I did those things, there was like a small chance that I would stay. And like, I didn't want to get tricked into staying into this thing, you know, so I kept very much like on the fringe so that I could always see the door, you know, and I always wanted to like not know anybody in AA so that like when I decided to drink, I didn't have a room full of people on my phone like, what are you doing? No. So, you know, I did the superficial AA thing all the time, and I thought, you know, I thought other people would believe my BS because I always did. You know, I really thought like, well, I'm doing AA, and I'm staying sober, and I always fell prey to the whole misconception that like if I just work a lot, like I'll just keep really busy, and then I won't think about drinking, and I won't drink. You know, the solution was always something superficial and exterior. That I could just manipulate or find, and that would save me from, you know, this alcoholic nightmare I seemed to have stumbled into. And so I would work, you know, and I'd always work a lot, and then I'd drink the job away, and then I'd go find another one, and the whole song and dance. So I was in and out of sober livings, detoxes, all that stuff. I tried to like tally them all up one time for a 4-step, and I couldn't even do it. My mom would probably know. She's got like a mental log, I'm sure. But like I remember, sometimes I'd be on my own too. Like I could at least get people off my case enough or think that I'm doing the deal enough to like live on my own. And I remember one time I woke up in a hospital in Milwaukee, and my mom was there like sobbing, and I just remember being so irritated with her. Like, she's so dramatic. Like, that was my only thought, was this is so annoying that my mom is sitting here like crying, and like I'm in a hospital. I didn't even wonder why I was in a hospital. I gave my mom grief for, you know, being emotional, and then the doctor came in and like explained that my roommate couldn't wake me and had called 911, and that I came to the hospital with a .40, and that they had already, you know, briefed my mom on the fact that like I might be in a coma after this, or I might make it out but be wet brain for life, and it's just not, you know, there's not a lot of good outcomes here. So that's why my mom was crying. So I guess it's a little more understandable. But even after he tells me all that, and he's like, to be your age and have a .4 on like a Wednesday afternoon, like something is wrong. Like, you're drinking a lot regularly. And I just remember wanting to get out of there and drink. Like, that was all I could think about, was like, this is heavy and I just need a drink, you know. This is a lot. And that's what I did, you know. I thanked my mom for showing up and like, don't worry though, everything will be fine. And I went back out and just kept on like I was. Like, I had no, like, the denial was so thick that there was no way to understand the gravity of the situation or what I was up against, like in any shape, way, or form. So I was in Florida, and you know, the years were going by, and I was realizing that like all these things that I thought I would attain that would like straighten me out, like a real career and, you know, a husband and a family, like those things were not ever within my reach because, you know, I was a drunken mess. So I had that in the back of my mind, but I really thought that when those things appeared, like I'd be okay. So I started dating a coworker in Florida, and dated for like a year. I was just waiting tables, which I thought was like, that's like, I kept setting the bar lower and lower, right? Like, I thought a career, like an ambitious career would really satisfy me, and that'll straighten me out. And then like waiting tables made a decent amount of money, and I could just drink after work all night and sleep off the hangover, and then like do it again the next day. And the expectations were pretty low, so it was like, yeah, I think I'll just wait tables forever, and that'll work out. So I was doing that, and we found out we were pregnant with my daughter, And I was 28, and I still remember, like, feeling like I was 16 and pregnant, like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? Like, I can't take care of a child, you know, like, I'm a mess. And I also had the thought in my mind of, like, how am I not going to drink? You know, like, it doesn't even sound possible to me. But at the same time, like, I was excited because I realized, like, I thought, this is my ticket finally, you know, like, I always knew that, like, this is going to be what changes me and, like, you know, writes my path. So I didn't drink during my pregnancy at all, and I had my daughter, and I was like, okay, now I'll work a 9-to-5 job, and I'll just drink wine like mommies do, and it'll all be like totally normal and housewifey, and it'll be fine. And I could do that for a little while. I guess it's important for me to note, because I tell the story differently in my own mind, that, like, I didn't decide to go and get a 9-to-5 job. I went back to the same waiting tables that I had been, but I hadn't drank for like 10 months, and so I did not realize that some of my tolerance had gone away, and I thought I would just, like, pregame before work like I used to, just a little bit. And I went to work just drunk and got sent home, and I was, like, mortified, and it didn't even occur to me to think, like, they must have been like, oh my, like, you just had a baby, and, like, you have an infant at home, and you're, like, coming to work drunk, you know, like, I didn't even realize, like, how bad that looked, because that's how bad it was, you know. But I got a 9-to-5 job, and I could drink, you know, it had to be every night, but I could keep it within reason, and I stuck to just wine. But, like, the glass of wine every night became 2, became 3, became a bottle wasn't enough, became, like, shaking a little bit in the morning, so occasionally I'd just take the edge off that way, which became like, a liquid lunch would probably be better than, like, an actual one. And that became losing my job, you know, all the same stuff. It eventually circled back, but it would last just long enough to delude me into thinking that, like, maybe this had all just been blown out of proportion. Like, my sponsor and I joke a lot about, like, looking back at, like, all of the rubble and, like, everything's still flaming, and we're like, maybe it wasn't that bad. Like, maybe I just overreacted, though. Like, I think everybody else made this a big deal, but it's really not that bad. And that's kind of how I was. If I could keep things halfway normal for, like, 5 minutes, I was convinced that, like, everything was going to be fine, and I had just worried about this too much, and I didn't need to think about it too hard anymore. But I guess it was a bit of a wake-up call to find out, like, you know, to look at this little girl and, like, love her with, like, every fiber in my being, and, like, be willing to jump in front of a bus for her, but not be willing to put down a drink for her, was, like, a really hard pill to swallow. And rather than me, like, seeing that as, like, that's the power of alcoholism, like, that's what you're up against, I just saw that as, like, you're a terrible mother and a terrible person, and, like, something is gravely wrong with you. It never occurred to me that alcoholism was the something. That made me feel like something was wrong with me morally or spiritually or something, which I guess wasn't entirely untrue. And that kind of scared me. But the weight of that guilt and shame that came with that became unbearably heavy, to the point where I'd always been drinking with, like, a purpose, but I was trying to constantly just alleviate that shame and guilt just a little bit, and it never did it. It was just always present. And, like, when I think about, like, the promises and things, and I used to, like, always cry when I heard those, and, like, the not regretting the past or wish to shut the door on it, like, still just kind of takes my breath away, because it was all I could think about, was all the mistakes I'd made and how I was failing my daughter. And, I mean, there wasn't a thought that, it was woven into every thought in my mind, that guilt and shame. And I couldn't imagine having, like, a clean, normal thought that wasn't just buried in guilt. So to live life today and, like, have thoughts that aren't just bogged down with, you know, self-deprecating shame and all that is just probably the biggest blessing I have today. But eventually things got so bad, I had long drank my job away, and my partner had to quit his job because he was constantly having to leave work, or was just afraid, of course, to leave our daughter with a drunk. And so, we couldn't pay bills. Everything went downhill. His family had long told him, like, I think you just need to, like, cut and run and don't look back, and, like, she'll just have to suffer the consequences. But, like, you got to think about your daughter, and, basically she's never going to change, and she's given you no reason to think that she will. And you just need to get Emmy and you out of there. So his mom lived here in Prescott and bought a plane ticket for him and our daughter. And I lost it. Like, that horrified me. Like, I knew I'd been failing her, but, like, the thought of, like, actually losing her, like, I guess it was still a selfish thought, because I just thought, like, now I'm going to drink myself to death. Like, I can't imagine living a life and picking up the pieces with her, like, knowing that I lost her, So I tearfully talked to my mom, and I basically said that, I can't leave her, and that I'm just going to go and follow them, and I'll go to treatment, I'll go to AA, I'll go to hell and back, like, whatever I have to do to stay in her life. And I came here, and I quickly started breaking all those promises. Like, I never went to treatment. I went to AA like I'd always gone to AA. I did the fringe AA. I got a job here quick, and as fate would have it, it was for an attorney who was in AA, and he interviewed me, and he asked questions about the 4 agreements. And I had read that, obviously, somewhere in my work with a sponsor or something. And so he was, like, impressed by that, and I guess felt open enough to, like, tell me, like, oh, by the way, I'm in AA. And it just never dawned on me that I could, like, disclose that, I was sort of in AA. I just kept that all to myself, because I was like, I need this job. And also, like, I just, that would mean that I'd have to, like, stay sober, and, like, I wasn't sure I wanted to do that yet, So I worked for him. I ended up drinking that job away. That was really, I still carry a lot of guilt, and I've made amends to him for that. But he was away in Michigan burying his father, and I seized that as an opportunity to drink with the office empty, because that's just, like, I was an opportunist. Like, I always had the reservation in my mind, and I was just waiting for that moment where I could do what I want with hopefully no consequences, even though that never worked out that way. But that was the hope. I lost that job. I eventually got sober again, sort of in AA, sort of, and got another job that I thought was, like, my dream job. And I would drive to that job, like, every day, just knowing that, like, just waiting for the ticking time bomb, and knowing that, like, not only do I not deserve this job, but, like, I have no worldly means to keep it. Like, I don't even know how to stop self-destructing, so this is just inevitable. And, of course, that happened. I'd gone to Florida to meet my nephews. My sister and my brother both had boys, like, a month apart, and they were all going to be in Florida, and I was going on a trip. I had about 6 months at the time. And the reservations started, and then the plans formed, and then there was mini bottles in my suitcase, and then I was drinking on the plane, and everything just completely unraveled. I got to Florida, and, my sister and my brother both heard what was going on. My brother, who was the only normie of all of us kids, so he has, like, zero tolerance for our alcoholic bullshit. He was like, I don't want to see her, like, don't even have her, like, come anywhere near us, just, not interested. And my sister, who was sober, who I thought, might be in my corner, pretty much said the same, and that she was so disappointed in me. And so I was supposed to go from one coast to the other to see my brother and fly out of that other coast to go back home to work. And now I wasn't going to that other coast to see my brother. My partner had flown to come pick up Emmy, who I had taken on this crazy trip. My mom had her, but passed her off. I was supposed to go back home with them, and I just refused. I didn't have any other plan, but I wasn't ready to stop. So I was at a hotel in Florida, knowing that my job is gone, and I don't know if my family's going to, like, even let me come home. And my plan was just to drink and drink more. And I remember, like, genuinely being afraid. Like, I was drinking Captain Morgan on this particular occasion, and I remember, like, looking at the bottle and being like, I know I'm the only one drinking this, but, like, that's a lot gone, and I don't even remember drinking that. and being like scared and having a moment of like my mind flash back to like almost dying that time in the hospital, and that like the reality that like I could drink myself to death at any given moment and I wouldn't even know it was coming, you know. And I think I just got scared of being alone, so I left my room and went and sat like in the hallway sofas, and I was just crying and probably a mess, and this guy walked up and asked if I was okay. And I said, yeah, I guess, or whatever, and just tried to like get rid of him. And he took like a double take at me and asked if I was Nikki's sister. And my sister had been sober in Melbourne in AA for like 3 years at that point. And I was just kind of confused. I didn't recognize him from anywhere. And I said, yeah. And he was like, oh, yeah, I know your sister from AA. And like, aren't you in AA? And like, why are you out here drunk in a hallway, like in a random hotel? And he's like, aren't you in AA? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know where I am or what I am. I don't know, man. I don't have anything figured out. And he was like, well, what are you going to do? And I don't know. Like, I have no idea. I really don't know. I don't know if I'm going home. I don't know what's going on. And he worked at this hotel that I just happened to stumble upon. And he was like, well, just hold on. I'm going to talk to my boss, and we'll go get you into like a detox, and it'll be okay. Like, it's going to be all right. And if not for him, like these little guardian angels of AA that I've bumped into on my journey, like I really don't know what I would have done. I probably would have spent all my money on hotel rooms and booze, and I would have been toast. So am I okay? I can't see that clock from here. It's so dark. Okay. So I go to detox there, and I managed to get a plane back home. And this guy was such a saint that I gave him my boss's number, and he had like just told him there was like some kind of family emergency, and that I had to stay in Florida for a week, but I was coming back. And I got the job. I kept my job under a cloud of suspicion for sure. And the only way to describe it is it like felt like an itch that wasn't scratched. Like I'd burned everything to the ground, but I still had this, and I knew that wasn't mine. Like I wasn't done yet. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't going to be satisfied until like everything was rubble. So I lasted like a month going to work and like just trying like this is my like it's all okay, and I'm gonna pick up the pieces. And my family went away for my daughter's spring break. They wanted to go to California. They'd already planned it, and I couldn't get away from work. And I just knew that was my opportunity, and I drank and ended up just epically drinking before work, during work. It was a whole embarrassing fiasco. And then I was satisfied, like, okay, now the job is gone, like everything is right in the universe because I have nothing and nobody, and I'm drunk and miserable, and like this just feels right, And that's how I know like the way I think about alcohol and all of it is not right, because like I don't ever like fantasize about like drinking in a bar with friends and like having a good time, like a couple of drinks. Like that doesn't do anything for me. But like on a bad day, like what I fantasize about is like being in a hotel room all by myself, like drunker than drunk, and like not a thought in my mind. You know what I mean? Like just gone. And that's what sounds good to me about drinking. It's not the couple of drinks at a party or any of that. Like those days are long gone. I had such a tiny little blink of that, and that didn't do it for me. So I don't know. I got back into AA again. I had a sponsor at the time, and so she got me into detox and was like, we just keep going and just pick up where you left off and get back on the horse. And it was like, I don't know. I think it's in Bill's story maybe where he talks about like the will to do battle just wasn't there. And like that's how I felt. Like I was so sick of being a newcomer. I was so sick of like getting 30-day chips, and like so sick of bullshitting through steps and like all of it. I was just so tired of that. And I don't know, I was just terrified that like I knew by then finally that like I was not able to drink the way I want to drink without consequences. Like that's just not possible. And I knew that wasn't possible, but I also would go to meetings and hear speakers and hear people enjoying sobriety and like having this full life, and like that felt equally impossible to me. Like I couldn't see it. And I thought, I've spent 10 years now in this same like purgatory on this shitty carousel, and like I think this is all there is for me, Like I don't see any clear way out of it one way or another. And that's what I mean about like coming here hopeless. Like there was a long period of coming to meetings and just crying and feeling like this is all for naught because I'm doomed and I'm too different, I'm too far gone, and I've got nowhere else to go, so I'm just here, But like I wasn't really in it, in spirit. I just had nowhere else to go, and I had no better ideas. And I guess that was a good place to be, because I had always thought that I could figure out a way, or I could just attain certain things, or, be certain things, and then this whole alcohol problem would be removed. And I kind of realized, like, I genuinely can't do this, and I can't do this my way, or any, there's no human power. And, like, I guess I got that, too, because I had long worn out my mom, and boyfriends had all come and gone, and all of that, and I didn't believe that anyone or anything was going to change me. But I didn't also have, like, a genuine faith in any sort of higher power. So I guess I was kind of like a blank slate, which was a good place to be for a change, rather than coming in with all my own ideas and plans. And so I just went through motions for a good while. Like, I got the 90-day chip, and I, like, rolled my eyes because I was so sick of those. And, I just kept going to meetings, slowly but surely. Like, I don't even think I meant to, but I had a sponsor who was really socially, linked with people in AA, and got me out to gatherings, and I kind of accidentally got, like, solidified in AA. And, that stuff kept me tethered, because it was like, oh, well, I don't want to, if I don't go to this or that, everyone's going to wonder where I am, or, because everyone thinks about me all the time, and I don't want to disappoint them with my lack of presence. And so little things like that just worked to at least keep me in AA long enough, for even the wrong reasons, but kept me in here long enough to, like, start to believe that maybe, like, what I do need is a spiritual solution, and maybe it's here for me like it is for everybody else that I see that's gotten it. I heard someone say, a speaker one time, that, like, he would, like, hear people speak, and, like, even though he didn't have a belief in a higher power, like, he could see, like, that was God in somebody else's life. And, like, I totally get that now. Like, I didn't have my own concept of a higher power, and all that time that I was listening to speakers and feeling, like, so detached from that and so separate, like, that was just me seeing God working in other people, and that was like a building block that if it worked for you, there's maybe a small chance that there's some kind of higher power that could work for me too. And I just started to try and at least open my mind to seeing God in different ways and seeing God more frequently. And, like, that came through gratitude. Like, life got easier and things got better, and I had a lot of gratitude for that. I had gratitude for my daughter that was still in my life, and all these other things that I didn't feel like I deserved, but somebody seemed to think I deserve. And I started to wonder about that. Like, I get that I don't think I deserve these things, but somebody obviously must, because I have these things. And maybe it's not about what I think I deserve or don't deserve. And if it's about what somebody else thinks I just, like, they see me this way, what do they see? And why do they see it? And, like, what's in that potential, And I started to, like, really just with gratitude. I could say gratitude prayers at night because I was thankful to be out of the, the burning house, so to speak. But I didn't really know what I was praying and who I was thanking. But I started to more readily see God working in my life. And I just stayed. And I just did all the things that I'd been told to do all along, but I just did them this time. And I got more active. I got commitments and things like that because I knew that they helped me stay. And by now, I kind of wanted to stay. And I was curious that if life was this good at 9 months, at 1 year, like, what else is out there? Like, what else could who else could I be? What else could I do? And the things that are, like, the hugest blessings of my sobriety today are, like, not anything like I would have pictured. Like, I thought I'd get sober and I'd have the stuff and I'd have the life, and everything would be, it would look really good on the outside, and that's what sobriety was. But it's like, it's all these things that like, for example, my dad passed away last September, and he called me when he was still, like, lucid, and told me to, if I can, to come and bring the girls and come say goodbye. And I just remember thinking, like, I can't do that. Like, I know I can't do that. Like, I'm not the kind of person you call in emotional crisis. Like, like, I felt like I really couldn't do that. But I knew that I had to, and I just felt like that entire trip and that whole experience, I just felt like carried. Like, I was watching myself do these things that, like, I didn't think I was at all capable of. I got to, like, hold my dad's hand and be with him as he passed, and like, console my little brothers and be a big sister and console his wife, and just be present, through this thing that I didn't think I'd ever want to be present for. Like, those are the kinds of things that I thought I would need to be so severely blacked out that I would have no idea what I was going through. But to be there and to feel it, and, like, that's one of my greatest, like, things that I'm thankful for today, is that I was able to be there, because there were so many things in life that, like, I just didn't participate in because nobody wanted me around. Nobody called me in those moments. I wasn't invited to, like, weddings or funerals or happy or sad occasions because I was just an added liability. So to be able to, like, genuinely be someone that people could lean on, like, meant everything to me. I had another daughter in sobriety, and that's just been like, such a reward to me to, you can't ever right wrongs, and it's not like I can make corrections through her for things that I've done with my first, but, like, I get to love her in a totally different, like, on a whole different scale with all of me, and be the kind of mother that they deserve, which, that was a pipe dream to me. I didn't even know if I would get to be in their lives, and now, to watch them grow and, like, also, like, instill the principles in AA in their lives is just a miracle. Like, this is a good example and a cute story. So I was driving with my daughter, and we were behind somebody going to the library, and, like, the turn was, like, 400 feet up, so I just had to, like, eke it out for 400 feet, and this guy was going, like, 20 miles an hour. And I'm, like, sighing. I don't cuss, but I was like, oh, what is with this guy? And my daughter in the back seat goes, Mommy, maybe he's just trying to do his best. I was like, she's 5. And I was, like, floored, like, oh my God, you're right. Like, he's probably just doing his best, like, and I'm an asshole, like, it's just cool to, like, see, like, we don't know the things that we teach little ones or even just friends or anyone watching us in this thing, but to be examples in that way is just priceless to me. So the things I have today, like, and it's all the intangible stuff, like, to be able to, like, hold my head up high and to be willing and able to help people and to have, like, a higher power that I genuinely, like, lean on, like, through this whole pandemic and being isolated from people. And I just went through a separation and a move, and I'm alone a lot for the first time in life, and, like, all of that, I've leaned really heavily on a higher power that, like, I didn't even think I'd be able to really grasp or have a relationship with. And everything in my life has just grown and evolved in ways beyond my wildest dreams. So if you guys are new, just stay. And if you're coming back for the 200th time like I did, just come back and pick up the newcomer chip and the 90-day chip and sigh and think it's all bullshit and it's hopeless. And because it is hopeless out there, but in here there is hope, and there's so much love, and just stay. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Jenna. This has been a regular meeting of the Rarely Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. You're cordially invited to join us again next week. Please bring a friend. There are approximately 100 meetings of AA each week in the Prescott area. We advise that you attend as many as possible, and we hope you'll join us again soon. After the prayer, will the people who volunteered to do that stuff, and your court cards are in the back right corner with Kirk. Let's circle up and say the Lord's Prayer.